our work is to reconnect to that. And that work of reconnecting to who we truly are is the practice of self-worth.
Aloha, and welcome to Healers' Voices, the podcast that brings you the healing heartbeats of Maui and around the world. I'm your host, Jessica Brazil, and together we embark on a journey to explore the inspiring stories of individuals who are making a profound impact on both local and global levels. From the powerful healing of Maui, we are here to amplify the voices of healers, visionaries, and change makers. We believe in the transformative power of dialogue to chart a future where all life thrives, living in harmony with the natural world and embodying the spirit of aloha. Aloha, Sarina. Welcome to our Healers' Voices podcast. We're really excited to have you joining us today to talk about a topic that you write and speak to in your Substack community, as well as other platforms where, as a coach and a mentor towards women's empowerment. And this topic of women are designed to lead landed in my inbox and gave me chicken skin. And I just wanted to, and even just right now, talking about it gives me chicken skin. And wow, welcome to the show. We've known each other for, I guess we haven't seen each other in quite a while, but we've known each other, I want to say, close to 10 years from afar.
Yeah, at least 8 years.
It's been a little while since we got to practice yoga out in the jungle in the middle of a whole community. Our lives have definitely transformed.
Those days.
Yes, so I just kind of relish in those memories, and it's been fun to watch your life unfold and you taking on such a thought leadership role in women's leadership. So thank you for being here, Sarina. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about, I know you've grown up and lived in many different places of the world, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure.
This topic.
Yeah, so I grew up in London, inner city London, and yeah, I've always had this connection to Australia where I live now because my mum was actually born here. So I'm so thankful for that. And yeah, I spent the first 30 years of my life in London, and I modeled for a long time, and I was also a makeup artist, and I was a beauty journalist. I studied journalism, and when I moved to Australia, I started to feel like myself. I started to feel the layers of density falling away, and I felt like I was on a land where I could really express who I was. And much of that is about being very forthright with my celebration of women. And yeah, in London, that's just a bit weird if you do that there. And that's so welcome here. And yeah, so I started to feel like myself. And then from there, I started to explore, what I wanted to do because I was really entrenched in this sort of modeling and makeup world. And as much as it was fun and exciting in many ways, it just didn't speak to the core of me. It was like just one tiny slice of my pie that was, fulfilled. And there were so many other parts that weren't fulfilled. And so, yeah, I started on many different ventures before I landed where I am now, which feels like the truest expression of me, which is a writer and mentor and artist in my spare time. So yeah, as you know, I write a lot around women and women's empowerment, women's place in the world. And actually here it's International Women's Day today, so this feels super potent. Yeah, so that's where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm. One of your quotes that I really love is, "Worthiness is innate, but self-worth is a practice."
I love that you love that too. Yeah.
You really stepped into a lifestyle of embodying worthiness and, moving against maybe the common grain that, tells women that they need to behave in a certain way or speak in a certain way, or just, we get so many messages in in our collective world around that. And so love to hear how this
Yeah,
through you.
I would love to speak on this. So, yeah, I have this unwavering belief, and knowing, actually, a knowing. And that is that we are born with this innate worth, innate worth to the extent that the sense of worthiness is not even a concept. It just is. And yet, when we're in this human form and in this dense world that we're born into, um, from the moment we're born, we're stripped of that knowing and that remembering of who we really are. And so our work is to reconnect to that. And that work of reconnecting to who we truly are is the practice of self-worth. To really feel our self-worth is actually a practice. It's something that we must repeat and devote ourselves to every day. And for every woman or every man, it's very different how we do that. And we know what connects us to that remembering, and that's what's important. Is, again, like you say, it doesn't need to look a particular way. How we practice that. For me, it's meditation, it's dance, it's being in nature, it's being with my little girl. It can be a multitude of things and some very, very simple things. Um, that essence of remembering who we truly are is a practice, and that's something that we really, really can then come into our power when we recognize that. Actually, it's up to me. It's up to me to practice. It's up to me to go first, to remember, and to create this beautiful momentum of remembering, so that when we do slip, which we inevitably do and always will, that we remember that we forgot, and then we get to reorient and come back to center and reconnect with that, and to have that flickering flame of remembering always there, always in the background, that no matter how dark it gets, no matter how unworthy we feel, no matter how suffocating those demons feel, that flickering flame is the thing that reminds us to come back to our practice and to remember our innate worth.
Mm. And yet to really practice that on that day-to-day basis really means being honest with yourself and honest with those around you, like that authentic truth, even when it's really uncomfortable and really inconvenient. And
Absolutely.
I've watched your writing and witnessed and experienced your writing in that way, especially around this topic that women are designed to lead. That this is could just birthed through you in such a strong way. I've heard a lot of women speaking about this. That the future is feminine. This feminine leadership, helps create some corrective um, momentum in our world as a collective, and also in our intimate relationships and in many relationships around us. So it takes a lot of courage and strength and worthiness to even just say that. So I'm curious to hear from you a little bit more about
Yeah.
where that came through you and how that
Mm.
at such a deep level.
Yeah. I feel like you're asking all the questions that have kind of been, the things that I've been asking myself recently, because I often connect back with the origins of this in my path. And yeah, funny enough, I actually had an ex of mine reach out the other day, and we haven't spoken for about 10 years.
Mm.
Broke up like 10 years ago. And yeah, when we got together, I was in the height of my modeling days, and I was, walking around in my super high heel Prada shoes, and I was shopping in Selfridges, and I was living that life. And, I was just about to kind of um, find my way with, my heart and the spiritual aspect of my life, which was, just about to happen. And when I met my ex partner, um, one of the first things that he said to me in a very teasing way, but actually just, some things that are said in just a casual way are the things that stay with us most. And he said to me, now just remember, in this relationship, I'm the boss. And I remember this complete contraction and sense of crush in my spirit of, I don't know if I can allow that. I don't know if that can be a thing where you're the boss, because yeah, I'm coming into my power. And I didn't have the words around it, but I had this real sense of, no, this is not the way. This is wrong. And this is going to suffocate me. And this is going to stifle me. And this is going to make me very, very sad. We ended up having a long relationship, and there was a lot of push pull with power dynamics, because I think that relationship was really an initiation for me to understand what's at stake if I don't lead. And what's at stake is that I completely lose myself, I doubt myself, I question myself, that I remain severed from my intuition, and that I'm not in the innate beauty and brilliance of myself as a woman if I can't lead in relationship. And so when that relationship came to an end, I had a whole recalibration of self and an understanding of what it meant for me to actually, the idea, what can it be like for me to be in a relationship where I lead? Because my sense of leadership was would be very different from him. It's not like me just taking it from him and me having the power, top down dynamic. That it wasn't that at all. But I was yet to figure out exactly what that was. And so, yeah, several relationships in, and playing a little bit with that, and also kind of going into the shadow side of that, because this wasn't an embodiment yet. This was trial and error. This was experimentation, and there was a lot of all that was modeled to me in terms of leadership was this very patriarchal top down power. And so I started to kind of enact that in relationships, almost this compensatory energy of, well, this is me leading, this is what it means for me to be in my power. And it wasn't until I actually became single for 2 years, where I didn't even kiss a guy, that I really started to reconnect with what it means to be in my power, my beauty, and my brilliance as a woman. And to be around other women, this was so key, to sit in circle with other women and hear the divine beauty of their voices and their expression, and to hear their stories, and just be in awe of us as women, and be like, just how can we not be leading? How can we be complicit in this paradigm where we are not leading? Because we are born to lead. Born to we are wired to see exactly what's needed most in any given situation. Our intuition tells us that, and I believe that it's an advantage that we have as women. And it's not to say that men don't have intuition, of course they do. But generally speaking, as a woman in a woman's body, we are the nurturers. We have that extra contact with the subtle realms, and we're able to innately and intuitively know what's needed next in any given situation, and to be very sensitive to energies. And this is now what I believe our leadership is. It comes from the essence of nurture, because we are the nurturers. And, we're all here on this earth to hold and help each other grow. And this is what leadership is. It's nurturance. It's not telling each other what to do, and it's not power dynamics where it's top down and then there are other people who are inferior. It's actually not that at all. Our leadership is holding hands and being alongside each other within this energy of nurturing each other.
One of my teachers described the feminine as infinite, meaning the feminine energy is just like space, being out in the cosmic energy. There is no boundary, there is no limit. It's very vast. It's a blank canvas. And that masculine energy is the creative force that is within that. So to create, there has to be space for creation, right? So when we think about like feminine and masculine energy and operating within our strengths, even in some of the Hawaiian teachers that I speak to, they say, our gut, our intuition is feminine and our heart is masculine. So we listen, we get the message from our feminine, and then we take action from our heart, and that will guide us, which is that practice of being attuning to the subtle realms to receive the message, to know how to take action. And,
Mm.
and even some of my other teachers, they share and I know this to be true in my own experience, is we have to first learn how to be before we know what to do. Otherwise, our doing can oftentimes be inefficient or unproductive or sometimes even harmful, or reckless, or just, not coming from our greatest capacity. So
And not
when I
coming
hear,
from what's needed, what's
right,
most needed. Yeah, that's
yeah,
beautiful. I've not heard that before about the heart representing that masculine aspect. I love
yeah,
that. I love that idea of, yeah, holding. I mean, we do hold both energies and essences of masculine and feminine. But I love that, very clear depiction of intuition feminine and heart masculine, and the intuition informing, because it's the being informing the heart, which is the masculine, to go and take the action. I love that.
right, yeah. Yeah, so we saw for quite a while there was this like a lot of healing with the heart, right? And now once our hearts are healed, we can listen more deeply with our intuition and be influenced. So when I hear like women are designed to lead, and yeah, the feminine or intuition is designed to give
Mm.
the message, to deliver the message. That's where the message comes from. Because when it comes from our brain, our mind, and it's not coming from that deep sense of knowing that, even just stepping into this call, right? We said, well, we could come up with a very heady plan, but let's just have a conversation and have an idea of what we want to speak to, and then let what comes through come through. And that's part of that feminine influence of
Yeah.
allowing intuition to lead, allowing, and then we can inform it with additional information, right? We can take
Mm.
action with the structures, the more masculine parts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love this idea. I'm having this
Right. So
picture of. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just refining that comment of, the message comes, then we know how to take action, and then that's definitely where that masculine, energy comes in a leadership capacity, right?
Mm.
So it's
Yeah.
interesting how, we've had, and this is where we see a lot of, I would say, battles between science and spirituality, where it's like, though they have a partnership, they're a partnership. We just have to remember that intuition needs to be informing. It
Mm.
can't be left or ignored. It has to be
Exactly.
leading.
Yeah, it has
Yeah.
to be informing, it has to be leading, yeah. And I love this idea of, masculine as structure, because the masculine is obviously just as important as the feminine. It just has a very different role. And, with the idea of the masculine and the structure holding in place some kind of beautiful creative dance, because we need some kind of sense of holding and stability. And yet, I feel that it's our intuition that dictates what that structure needs to be. So the intuition actually is an invitation for the masculine or a man, if we're talking about in a relationship in a practical way. The intuition is informing, because it's the information that asks and requires the specific structure that we need to dance within. So, we really are in this interplay and this beautiful exchange. And yeah, it's so key to just keep coming back to the alchemy of the masculine and the feminine, because there's a huge culture now of the feminine rising, and I think I can understand why for a lot of men it feels like, oh, am I going to be redundant? Do I have a place now? What's my role? And almost a bit of pushback that might come from men maybe don't quite understand what this is actually about. And I think also a lot of women maybe don't understand what this is about, because we're not looking for, well, certainly I can speak for myself. I'm not looking for a world where women dominate and women rule, and it's all what we say. But it's really about that alchemy, and that deep reverence for the feminine that comes from men and women, and recognizing that as we keep coming back to, a woman's intuition and a woman's nurturance is what is the information that we need for what's needed, and defines, therefore, what structures we create.
Yeah. So as we see so many systems collapsing right now, it's so important for us to listen and be influenced by the feminine message.
Mm.
often what I hear in your writing is claiming that voice, being able to speak the truth, being able to inform, and the feminine's been on a journey of reclaiming that voice. And that's why, so oftentimes when it comes to trauma recovery, we speak as women about reclaiming our voice. It's really about reclaiming our ability to speak from intuition, which can be scary because it can be uncomfortable conversations. And yet and ideally it's coming from a place of nurturing, like you said, because of that attunement that the feminine with raising and holding life within her in order to recognize subtle different cries in an infant, to be able to recognize that subtle field of what's happening around you simultaneously while multitasking. The subtle body is definitely, designed to be more attuned and stretch into time and space in a more vast way. Whereas even just the masculine energy, if we're looking at it from the masculine, that one pointed focus, like a lot of meditations that have one pointed focus, oftentimes masculine can thrive and totally, expand in consciousness in an amazing way. Whereas the feminine may be able to get into that place through dance because of that ability to connect a lot of different subtle realms in different ways and insights from that. That can be very transcendent.
Absolutely.
Get us into that altered state of awareness.
Yeah. I think it's important, this point that you make of voicing, voicing out from our power and voicing our needs. And, in this process where we are reestablishing our place and our power, it's going to be messy and it's going to be uncomfortable, as you say. And there will be some conflict, and I've definitely experienced a lot of that in my current relationship, where the nature of my voice is different depending on what's arising. I speak about nurturance being the way to lead, but it's not just nurturance. Sometimes my sacred rage is what's leading. It's this demand. You will listen. You are not hearing me, and you will listen. And woman, in a kind of Kali energy is captivating. You can't look away. You can't ignore that. And I think that's a very powerful, especially, having these kinds of archetypes is really so helpful, I find. When I need to establish more boundaries, I'm thinking more on my yoga. But, sometimes there's this just wave that overtakes me of this surge of anger. And I know that it is a collective anger. I'm speaking on behalf of women. My rage is on behalf of women, and I demand that I'm heard. And this also is my leadership, because it says, no, 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 it's been so wrong in the past. And this is why we can't just let the status quo be the status quo. There needs to be purification and fire and transformation. And I'm here in my fire, and I'm in my rage. And it takes a a man who feels safe in his body, which is a whole other thing as well, but which we can certainly help with. But it takes a man to be safe in his body to actually stand there and bear witness to a woman in her rage, and to hear the message and not just hear the anger, and hear that the rage is sacred and it's not just directed at him, or it's not actually directed at him, it's directed at all of us, at the systems, at the status quo, at the structures that need to dismantle. And this is something that also I'm speaking to a lot in my relationship is there was one time I had this huge, I was like this dancing flame of sacred rage. It's something that, was really coming through for me. And what was even more infuriating is that my partner was going in to fix her, Oh, my woman's on fire. I better come in with my extinguisher. Get all my fires out there with my extinguisher. I know, dude. That's not that's not what your role is here. Your role is to hold me and revere me and witness me, and this is something that I've had to really teach and lead around, not necessarily in that moment, but away from that moment when things have settled, to then use my voice to then come in with a nurturance and say, hey, when I was in that space, this is really what a woman needs from a man. This is why. It's not about me. It's not about being directed at you. This is something that is activated by the collective. This is so divine. And please don't mistake it as something that's about you or something that you need to fix. You just need to hear, you just need to listen.
Yeah. And by hearing and listening, to be influenced by that, right? Not to necessarily internalize or personalize it, but just allow yourself to witness and be influenced by her, by the feminine. Natural disasters are such a perfect example of what you just shared with us. Our entire world is going through a purification, and our planet, our earth, is upset. It's been defiled. It hasn't been listened to. So that sacred rage is, what we're experiencing with natural disasters.
Yeah.
Maui, we just went through that. And it wasn't, that it was directed at individuals that were harmed in the process. It's a consequence of this collective um, pain that is expressed. And even though human conditions, of course, human conditions contributed to it, right? It wasn't nature mad at individuals. Just like the masculine, personalizing that interaction that you're describing.
Yeah.
It's a purification that our planet is trying to create some corrective elemental balance so we can live in harmony. So we can't, and nurturing is the easiest way to get there. I always say being influenced by the feminine messages, because nurturing is much more comfortable than war. Power dynamics are warful dynamics are very painful. They're extremely painful. And, there's places for that, but it should definitely be very, 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 very sparingly ever executed. And hopefully never has to get to that point if we have more of that feminine influence taking place in our life. Another saying that was, shared with me before is, wars are really healed in relationships when we learn this dance. And if we all are practicing it in our intimate relationships and our family relationships, it'll ripple into the collective. So
absolutely.
I appreciate
And I really believe that, and I can only speak to a heterosexual relationship because it's my only experience. But I think it's so useful to speak about that heterosexual relationship because it's such a microcosm for the world at large, that masculine, feminine divide and unity as well. But yeah, it's something so powerful to remember that when we are in conflict and when we're in love, we really are becoming a resonance and a ripple outward. We're not just dealing with what's arising in our relationship, but we have a frequency that's emitted. And when we heal in relationship, there is a ripple. And when we teach men, I really believe men, they want to be led. They want to know how to be better. They want to be nurtured because they want the beauty ingredients in them, the essence of their beauty ingredients to be recognized by us. I absolutely believe as well, a woman innately wants to be seen and celebrated, but, let's not forget men. They want that too. And again, I believe that women have this innate ability to see this beautiful, latent brilliance and beauty inside a man and to go in and nurture that. And I really believe that men subconsciously choose us women because they believe that we have that capacity to see that beauty and brilliance in them, like the bud, and go in and nurture it and allow it to blossom because they are here to be their fullest expression too. And so that is that's a beautiful gift for us to be able to offer when a man is receptive to our leadership and, with that, receptive to our nurturance, but also, as you say, receptive to our sacred rage, because this is something so incredibly uncomfortable. And I acknowledge, all the men who are doing such deep work to, go into that reverence for the feminine and for women. It's astounding, actually, the courage that it's taking, and men who are coming together in circle as well, because they're recognizing that if they get to share their stories about their women in the sacred rage, then actually it can't just be about me. Of course, I can't take it personally. This is something greater that's represented here. And this is the rising, and this is the reclamation of women. And for them to have that knowing activated in them as well is what we need. It's not just down to us on an interpersonal level in our relationship, but it is the responsibility is also with those men who we are with, and men who are also single, to reconnect with the feminine in themselves and all around, and the infinite beauty, infinite beauty that the feminine holds, that we've been missing out on for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so vulnerable for all of us to connect back with that, because it brings grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't. And I find that when the masculine really allows itself to be influenced by myself and my feminine, that's when he really becomes a hero to me. And that's when we really perform as a couple. And that inter-exchange of leadership that happens in, here's the influence, now take action, and this is what, right?
Yeah.
And there's, coming back to science and spirituality, there's actually science around it, that there's reduced violence in relationships when the masculine allows itself to be influenced by the feminine. That ripples into the world. It makes a lot of sense in leadership to me. Our voice is so important, and sometimes it seems mysterious, and the emotions can seem chaotic, but you know what? Chaos is needed sometimes, because it changes a momentum, a trajectory that, the intuition knows the trajectory may end up going in one direction, and it may look really great right now, but it may be really a lot harder to unravel from later, or it might be really harmful. So that sacred rage that you speak to, just like a natural disaster, it's important for us to listen to.
It's feedback.
It is feedback. Yeah. So I really appreciate you sharing, and I'm just curious, for those who want to learn from you and be influenced by your writing the way that I have been blessed to be, knowing you personally, but also being blessed by some of your writing, what's the best way for our listeners to be influenced by you?
Yeah, so at the moment, the best way is to visit my Substack website, which is where I've got rid of my old website and all of the sense of having to have copy and sales pages and things like that, because I honestly couldn't keep up with my own transformation. I was like changing my copy all the time. And this is why Substack is so perfect for me, because it really is the display of my evolution and my unraveling in my writing. So each piece on there is, like a snapshot and a timestamp of where I've been and where I'm going. So I also host on there some information about my mentor work, and some invitations there as well to work with me one-on-one. There's no group offerings at the moment, but there will be. So if anyone is interested in reading longer form, I write some longer form essays. I also write some impassioned poetry, I call it, which is something I actually scheduled for today, for International Women's Day. I wrote an impassioned poem about women today. which you'll probably get when we get off this call in your email. Yeah, so I'd say go to my Substack. That's the best way to find me and find out about my work and more about who I am and what I stand for.
I love that. And I just posted your Substack link here in the banner. So it's Sarina Zoe 22.substack.com for those who are just straight listening. Again, that's Sarina Zoe 22.substack.com, and we'll include it in our description of this show as well. So it's International Women's Day. Is there any special message that you would like to share with our collective international women?
My goodness, what a question.
Designed to lead, inspirational thought leadership.
Yeah.
Messages from yourself, right from that intuition.
That's the message. Yeah, is that trust your design, trust your intuition. You're designed to see and to see deeply and to know what's needed. And that's where our leadership comes from.
Well, thank you so much, Sarina. Hopefully we'll get to have you back on here again and keep learning from you as this feminine leadership continues to birth itself in your life and in your world. We look forward to meeting your daughter and seeing how she unfolds in this influence in her family life as well. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Having you again.
It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this transformative journey through the heartbeats of healing. We hope that Healers Voices has filled your heart with inspiration and brought you closer to the spirit of aloha. As we conclude this episode, we invite you to continue this important conversation in your own life. Let these stories and insights resonate within you and inspire change in your own community and beyond. Remember, the power of healing is within all of us, and by working together, we can bring positive change to our world. Let's move forward with compassion, understanding, and a commitment to living in harmony with nature and one another. We'll be back with more incredible stories and voices of healing from Maui and around the world. Until then, please remember to follow and like us to support this continued raising of awareness, and continue practicing, embodying, and spreading the aloha spirit to make a difference in the world. Mahalo for listening to Healers Voices. We'll meet again soon.